Hi, everyone. As more and
Hello.
more people trickle to join in, we've already been joined by close to 100 people. I hope everyone's settling down well, not in their lives in this webinar, also to the new world. But looking at the bright side, we get to talk across borders like this. I am Shiti, founder and COO of Breathe Happy. Breathe Happy is a UK-based health company. Our mission is to find the best of science for well-being of people and make it accessible to all using technology. Currently, we have started live teachings from the home and heart of yoga, which is India, to the living rooms of people. Along with my team at Breathe Happy, we are proud to be your host today, and it is my privilege to welcome you to all to this panel discussion. This is on the eve of International Yoga Day. It's a day that's not just about exercise, but also about the discovery of the sense of oneness with yourself, the world, nature. And Breathe Happy today is talking to experts from fields of science, medicine, education, and business on how to deal with the biggest challenge of our times, probably. We welcome all our audience joining us from the various parts of the world, especially in UK, India, Singapore, and the US. If I've missed out from where you're coming from, it's my ignorance. Please do forgive and let us know in the Q&A option where you're coming from. We have a great illustrious panel of experts, and I can't wait to introduce them all to you. But just before that, I need to do some housekeeping. So first, let's take a few moments to go through the program, shall we? So this is a bird's eye view of what the 1.5 hours it's going to be looking like. I'm very excited to hear from our panel, and going by the number of questions we've already received, I know you are too. So after the panel insights, we will take up all those questions and also some live ones. This will be followed by live breathing and meditation in the end with our world-class teacher. And finally, towards the end, we will also be sharing a coupon code with all of you for a free class of your choice for you all to attend. And along the way, there will be interesting audience polls and some quizzes, so stay tuned for that. Now, just quickly for house rules. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a Q&A button. You can keep trying your questions even during the event. Use that icon to type in your questions. Along with some pre-submitted questions, our team will consolidate them all, and either we will answer them live with the experts or our team will answer you specifically. This is the moment I've been waiting for. Science is organized knowledge and wisdom is organized life. And in our panelist, we have the perfect recipe for that. So we'll start with Dr. Naomi, and I'll give a quick round of introduction of all of you first, and then we can get into the speeches and insights of everyone. So Dr. Naomi is a consultant clinical psychologist with 20 plus years of practice. She introduced yoga and mindfulness into a treatment program for men in a high security prison in the UK. Her book chapters center around the theme of the two-way relationship between the body and mental well-being. Thank you for being here with us. Dr. Ashish with us is a consultant psychiatrist and deputy associate medical director at NHS Trust UK. Dr. Kumar helped establish one of the first children's eating disorder service in the UK at Liverpool's Alder Hayes Hospital. He currently serves as vice chair at the Royal College of Psychiatrists and as president at the European chapter of Academy. Welcome, Dr. Kumar.
Thank you.
Kim Palmer is with us. She runs Clemetine, an app that's responsible for health and well-being of thousands of women in the UK. It's been recommended by Guardian as one of the 7 best apps to try. We have with us Shagun, a popular columnist and educationist from north of India, and she started recently work with international schools, and her experience with parents and parenting evolution is something we're going to dive in today. We've got Nayana with us, Nayana Cariappa, who after a decade at Google decided to devote her life, her energy, her time to the communal well-being with yoga. Her philosophy is that yoga is a lifestyle lived best outside of the mat. Thank you all for being here with us today. So without taking more of your time, shall we invite Dr. Naomi to share her insights with us?
Hi, thanks Shitty, thanks for a lovely introduction. What I want to focus on first of all is something about the pandemic that actually brings together all of the anxieties. So there are some obvious issues in relation to health, but what I'd like you to think about is how many of you went out during normal rush hour time during peak lockdown? And I did, and wow, it was really eerie. I felt like I walked out onto the sets of 28 Days Later or some other kind of post-apocalyptic movie. And I don't think I'm ever going to forget that experience of 8 o'clock in the morning, should be really busy and a hub of activity. And actually it was really quiet, very, very eerie. Maybe other people will remember going to the supermarket and panicking because there was no toilet paper, no rice, no pasta. Maybe different countries sold out of different goods. Maybe you've been frightened that your kid's education is suffering. Maybe you're even less fortunate and you haven't been able to leave your house for months for fear of catching the virus. Or maybe you've had to deal with knowing you may be more vulnerable but still had to go to work, or been furloughed and made redundant and been frightened about how you'll support your family. Worse still, maybe someone you love has been really sick, or you've had to live with the fear of them dying for weeks. And worst of all, someone you love has died and you've lived with all that other fear, and also the fear that in their last moments they felt lonely and unloved. So the pandemic has been so life-changing because it has made so many people feel so frightened, and it has taken away their safety. I hope that some of you will have heard of the amygdala, which is a tiny almond-shaped part of the brain, which is known as the fire alarm of the brain. It detects threats, and when we feel threats, it can trigger very primitive patterns of behaviour that we use to try and regain control or reduce our perception that we're at risk. And I think when we talk about threat, people believe we're talking about very big events, but actually we will feel threat several times during the course of a normal day. So that threat signal goes off when we have sharp words with our partners, when we find ourselves rushing because we're late for an appointment, and all of this kind of like upsets our sense of balance. Sorry, my cat. That's one of the things in technology. So this sense of fear leads to kind of like 3 strategies. If we're not able to manage the fear well, what happens is we either submit to the threat and we freeze, or we avoid being in contact, we avoid noticing it, and we flee from it, but we use various strategies to do that. Or we might act a bit kind of like blasé or macho, as if the fear is insignificant. So that's about kind of fighting. And that's reflected in our coping strategies. And unless we speak about our fear, we recognise that that's what's happening, it can lead to the worst of our behaviour. So we've seen people rigidly following rules and being very angry with people that haven't followed those rules. We've seen panic buying greed rather than people just taking enough for what they need. We've seen some people dismissing it as a conspiracy theory. You know, it's all Bill Gates's master plan. In Britain, we've had Dominic Cummings and the Scottish Health Secretary blatantly rule breaking, so using entitlement as a way of coping. Other people kind of like being very, very frightened to leave their houses, even when they don't have underlying health conditions. Other people glued to the news. So partly this is manifest because our usual strategies that we use for managing the threat response have been removed, and our 2 main strategies are reaching out for comfort, so reaching out to those we love, those we feel safe and secure with, And of course, being restricted to our own homes has made that much less possible for us. And secondly, we've had to, normally we would use movement as a way of managing our anxiety. So movement reminds our brains and our emotional self that we are able to protect ourselves, we're able to defend ourselves. And of course, being tied to our houses has meant we're much less able to do that. So the COVID virus has really disrupted our sense of safety and well-being, but also made it very difficult for us to use our normal coping strategies that would help us manage our fear. And I just really want to talk at this moment about one strategy that I think is the single biggest thing that you can do to improve your life and support your physical and emotional well-being. And best of all, that is free. So we're talking about breathing. And I'm sure some people will be thinking, well, you know, we all take in enough oxygen to live. We think we're breathing adequately. I was in my late 30s when I realised I wasn't doing this properly. And I think the symbolism of this is really important when you consider two of the biggest world events right now. So obviously in COVID-19, being unable to breathe is a crucial symptom. And actually we've all seen those images of people who are intubated with the tubes going up their noses and really struggling to get air and oxygen. And then I think the other world event we can't ignore is the murder of George Floyd and his last words, "I can't breathe." So I think that phrase, "I can't breathe," is emblazoned in all our minds at the moment. And George Floyd literally couldn't breathe, but not being able to breathe is also really associated with fear. I run a specialist service for men with histories of very extensive childhood trauma in a high secure prison. For some time now, we've run activities such as yoga and mindfulness at the start of therapy. And we do this to help them become more emotionally stable, because we know that they're about to embark on a really difficult journey to address the therapy, to address their underlying childhood trauma. And at the moment, the men are locked up for a significant part of the day, so that we're not running a therapeutic regime at the moment. We can't run treatment as usual. So we've been trying to help them keep stable and identify what we can do to strengthen their coping and not waste their time, but give them a skill that also will help them on that therapeutic journey. So at the moment, we're kind of like developing more resources to help people actually breathe better. Excuse me. So good breathing involves breathing in through the nose, and that's absolutely essential. And I think that's the thing that most people get wrong about breathing. So we need to breathe in through our nose and deep down into our abdomen. And we should only be breathing at 5 to 6 breaths per minute, which is actually much less than most people breathe. And actually, if you're 6 foot tall or more, then really you should only be taking 3 breaths a minute to get the right level of oxygen into your body. I think the fact that intubation tubes go up through the nose might indicate that nasal breathing is important. And how we breathe out is much less important. But if you use your mouth to breathe out, it's likely that you're going to fall back on breathing in that way during the day. So why is mouth breathing so bad for us? If we breathe in through our mouth, we take in too much oxygen, and then we don't have enough carbon dioxide, which we actually need to release the oxygen into our muscles and to help regulate our blood's pH levels. If we breathe efficiently, then we release less free radicals as the oxygen converts to energy. So breathing in through the nose is associated with less inflammation, and inflammation is implicated in all aspects of health within our entire body. We're also less likely to feel physical and mental fatigue. Our concentration levels improve. And crucially, when we're thinking about the virus, is that actually our noses catch germs as we breathe in through our nose, and that doesn't happen when we breathe in through our mouth. So breathing in through our mouth exposes us to a lot more virus that we really could do without. The other thing that happens in our nose, and it only happens in our nose, is that when we breathe in through our nose, it stimulates nitrous oxide. And nitrous oxide is implicated in reducing our risk of heart attack, and it helps our bodies stay in balance. So it's involved in antiviral activity, so it strengthens our immunity. It also ensures a healthy libido and genital functioning, and it helps our brain and the neurotransmitters within our brain work effectively. When we breathe in through our mouth, we activate our chest, and that activates the stress response. When we breathe in through our nose, we take that breath more deeply into our stomachs, and that activates a calming response. And as we breathe in, basically our body becomes more aroused, and as we breathe out, our body calms, and our breath kind of acts like a bit of a seesaw, kind of like swinging to and fro. So as we inhale, we stimulate our sympathetic nervous system, and that excites us, and we get ready for fight or flight, and it stimulates our heart rate and dulls our digestion. As we exhale, then that stimulates our parasympathetic nervous system, and that relaxes us, calms our heart rate, and stimulates our digestion. So if we're doing a lot of breathing in through our mouth, what we're doing is keeping our body with a sympathetic dominant, so we're more likely to be on the edge of arousal, whereas actually breathing in and out for an equal amount of time and ensuring our oxygen levels are balanced and our breathing patterns balanced keeps us in a state of equilibrium. I think just one final point about breathing is that our stomach holds our enteric nervous system. And in the last 2 decades, Europe and America have woken up to what those in the East have known for a very long time, that our mind and body are intertwined. And we know that our guts and the neural network in our stomach sends more messages to the brain than it actually receives from the brain. So 90% of the fibres that pass up from our stomach up through the vagal nerve into the brain are sending messages up to the brain rather than receiving messages from the brain. And nasal breathing helps our enteric and autonomic nervous systems work in synchronicity. So what we find is that the sympathetic nervous system has the opposite rate on our stomach that it has on our heart. So it stimulates our heart, but it calms our stomach. And the inverse is true of the parasympathetic nervous system. In our stomach, there are 30 neurotransmitters, and our stomach also holds 95% of our body's serotonin. That's the chemical that's associated with well-being. So actually gut health is really important in terms of well-being and immunity, and it's really heavily associated with nasal breathing. And I just want to finish with a reference to Professor Emran Mayer of UCLA, who said that in future, psychiatrists are going to be as interested in what's happening in our stomachs as they are in what's happening in our heads. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Naomi. That was wonderful. And we do have a very renowned psychiatrist with us, so we'll get his take on what you just ended with. But before that, I would really love to emphasize on how you broke down the physiology with breathing and gut. I mean, I used to always have these moments before exams where I needed to run to the loo. And I can sort of understand a bit better now why that used to happen. It does happen. Even before this webinar, I did that. So the fact that they're calling stomach and gut the second brain is understood by what you just said. It holding the second largest number of neurons after brain in our body. That was lovely. I would just take a moment here, and because a lot more people have joined us since we started, and there may be some new people. So once again, welcome everybody. We are celebrating International Yoga Day, a day of celebrating oneness beyond exercise. We are Breathe Happy, a UK-based company that believes in well-being of mind and body. And with us is panel with rich expertise in medicine, science, education, and business. to take on your questions about health and well-being in this new normal that we are living in. We just heard from Dr. Naomi, who specializes in this two-way connection of mind and body. She's integrated yoga and mindfulness at high security prison in the UK, apart from her clinical psychology experience in the last 20 years. I loved how she explained to us why breathing through nose is important versus mouth, and what are the changes that happen within the body. And they always tell you, don't they, that you cannot pour from the empty cup. So you got to take care of yourself first. These were some very handy tips on how to take care of yourself. So breathe and breathe more, and calm yourself with as many tools and techniques that you have available. Today, we will bring to you one technique that we know of, and towards the end, we will have live breathing, stretching, and meditation session with an expert. We will also have a coupon code for free sessions that you can avail of your choice. And now we move to the second speaker of our day. We have with us Dr. Ashish, whose resume contains words that are hard to pronounce for me. He's a vice chair at Royal College of Psychiatrists. He's been he's established one of the first children's health eating disorder service in the UK at Liverpool. An illustrious career and an exceptional psychiatrist. Dr. Ashish, I welcome you to share with us, and please tell us what the world is going to look like. Is the second wave coming? What's the science behind all the well-being initiatives that we talk about? What can we do as children, especially because that's your area of expertise, but overall to tackle better with our well-being, mental and physical?
So many thanks, Shiti, for inviting me for this webinar, as well as welcome all the audience. And it shows that you care about mental health, you care about your well-being. That's why you are here. And thanks for wonderful talk from Naomi, really great. Very scientific, as well as joining the mental health as well as physical health. Shruti, you asked me to think about how we help, and the parents and the children, how they should manage themselves and how it has impacted on especially children's mental health. So before I go on to talk on that, I must disclose that I practice yoga. I have been practicing yoga since my childhood. I learned it from some experts in India, and I went on to do that in my medical school, and learned lots of meditation as well. And as I trained in psychiatry, I quickly came to know in UK, which was about 18 years ago, that how mindfulness was practiced or was recommended for patients from all age, including adults and children, because I trained in adults and as well as child psychiatry and different branches of psychiatry. So how it was useful to help them to get better with their mental illness at different levels. So some of the things which I must highlight, and I would focus on Shitty, your first poll you did at the beginning of this session, in which you mentioned that only few children have been affected by COVID-19. That might be true in terms of medical sense, but actually quite a number of children have been affected by COVID-19. And during my talk, I would explain how actually quite a high number of children have been affected from mental health point of view and their well-being point of view. So first, some hard data I would want to share with all of you, that about 20% of children and adolescents may experience a mental health problem in a given year, which is quite a high number as you would think about. And 50% of mental health problems are established by 14 and 75% by age of 24, which is again very high number. So you could imagine that lots of our mental disorders is present in societies already established by 14 years of age, and and by 24, 75% of that. So if you could tackle it early in your lifetime, and if you have children, if you could identify that, seek help in early time, you can sort it quite a lot and give them very happy and productive life. So just bear in mind all those figures. And As a psychiatrist, one of my job is to help propagate knowledge and information about mental health of and also well-being of our children as well as adults, because our children become adults, and my service looks after young people and goes until 19. So after 18, of course, they are adult as well. So another data is that 10% of children and young people who are 5 to 6 years of age have clinically diagnosable mental problem or mental health problem. Again, which is quite a high number, as you would imagine. 70% of children and adolescents experience some sort of mental health problem. There was last survey in the United Kingdom, which was in 2004, and it says that 1 in 10 children by age of 5 to 15 had a mental disorder. Now, from scientific point of view, we can generally use loose term that you have mental health problem. But when you call it mental disorder, you mean that you have diagnosed them. And again, 1 in 10 is 20%, sorry, 10% of population of children, which is again quite a high number. By 2017-18, it was 1 in 8 children who were suffering from mental disorder. So it is quite a high number. Another hard figure I would want to share with you that as many as 188 countries in the world, and this is United Nations figure, which means about 1.5 billion children and young people were affected because 188 countries decided to close school and colleges. Now that is very high number, as you would imagine. So, and 1.5 billion children and young people is extremely high number. And as you could see that the earlier figure of prevalence of mental disorder I mentioned to you has gone up. In my own surveys around Liverpool and Manchester, there has been 30% escalation in new referrals, and the complexity of referrals have gone worse as well, because all these young people and children are not having access to normal lifestyle, which means going to college or schools, going to activity clubs, participating in sports and other kinds of activity, music, drama, dance lessons and whatnot. So as you could imagine, there has been quite a bad effect on their life. So it is a misnomer to think that only few children have been affected. And I agree, medically, only few deaths have happened in young people. But as young as 6-month-old child or few weeks old child has died, and as old as 19-year-old young people have died as well. So COVID-19 has not affected any part of the society. It is not true that it has not affected any part of the age group, I would say so. And also during the lockdown, what has happened is that children have been affected in variety of ways. First of all, I will talk about social drift. As you could imagine, that children depend upon their parents' income and financial status. Because of job losses, because of furloughing of many adults in UK and many other countries, lots of families have gone into poverty. And so some people who were doing well have been affected quite badly. And then there is lower spectrum of economy scale, where families were already struggling with finances and they have gone into extreme level of poverty. As a result, their family life, their what they could eat, what they could have access to, lifestyle or sports activities, etc., or entertainment, they cannot afford all of that. That has brought another higher level of anxiety. So children have been affected directly by social drift, I would say, in terms of loss of income of their parents, number one. The affection of their parents' mental health because of loss of income. Thirdly, because of lockdown, there has been escalation in domestic violence. It has been well documented in lots of newspaper articles and research as well. Children who witness domestic violence and abuse are more likely to develop severe mental disorders. That is also there. Also, children have fallen prey to lots of abuse, neglect, as well as they had instances of children accessing online education or online material because they are not going to school, and hence they have fallen prey to online grooming, abuse, etc. So that has affected them in a variety of ways. Also, in many countries, children have been living in camps because there are no permanent shelter for them. So they have fallen prey to further abuse and so on and so forth. So there are lots of ways by which children have been affected because of COVID situation. And so already tsunami of mental health condition, which was affecting young people and older adolescents has become worse because of the COVID-related lockdown. And so going forward, how to deal with that? Before I go there, I would like to share with you some of the information I have and the research which was done in this field. So from Harvard Medical School, I have some data from there that it is a bit old, but it's still very relevant. In about 3 to 4% of children and young people were using yoga and mindfulness. That is the figure from 2012. And it was established in that research that yoga improves balance, strength, endurance, and aerobic capacity in children. Yoga and mindfulness offer psychological benefits for children as well. And the research also indicated that yoga can improve focus, memory, self-esteem, academic performance, classroom behavior, and can reduce anxiety and stress in children. Of course, from personal experience, I can tell you that how helpful was it for me and my peer group who were part of this yoga classes from my early childhood, as well as in medical school as well. So overall, you know, yoga and meditation and mindfulness has been extremely valuable and useful to children and their growth and development. And there is lots of evidence that yoga, meditation, mindfulness can help young people in depression, anxiety, and especially a neurodevelopmental condition called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and autism. In those conditions, yoga and mindfulness and meditation have been found very useful. Of course, they need to be initiated by a proper trainer, a guru, instructor, whatever you call them. It could be a parent who has been trained in yoga, who could then train their children, because younger children would benefit from parental support and training. That's how we work. And Naomi can tell us more when we go for panel discussion, that how we use parental training to train the children early in their lifetimes in UK as a very first class intervention for young people and children to help them get better. So how we could support them going forward? So I see lots of patients who have suffered because of poor sleep hygiene. Their daily structure has gone for a toss. They're not sleeping very well. That is affecting their mood. That is affecting their behavior. Their oppositional behavior has gone worse. Their conduct problem have escalated. They're fighting with their parents. They're not listening, and they're not wanting to engage in education because there is no structured classrooms anymore. Some schools have been more supportive than others. Some are providing online support. Some are sending some homework by emails. But not all children are very good in complying with these online interventions. Many of them are very much used to going to a classroom, interacting with their peer group, their friends. They like to go to playgrounds, be naughty there, play and engage in hands-on music classes, drama classes, and so on and so forth. That has been missing, and that has been affecting children's mental health and their behavior. So going forward, if hopefully in next few weeks, of course in UK, um, partially the lockdown has been lifted in some form or shape. Some schools have started, some schools have not. Some are going to start in August and September even. So best thing would be to offer as much as a structure possible to your young people and children as possible. Offer them some books, offer them some time. Parental support is really essential. There are many online classrooms which are available. You could offer them that. I do know that some online courses on music, drama, and others, dance lessons are available. My children access that, so you can access that too. And I'm sure, Chitty, you are offering online yoga classes, I think, so they could benefit from these as well. Of course, if they're interested in music, you should support that. So all these things together can help your children to have a structure, engage in education, keep their sleep hygiene at normal level, have a sleep structure that is extremely vital for your children's growth, development, as well as normal behavior. Listen to them, spend time with them, try not to fight at home. I know it is easy to say and difficult to follow because we are under very artificial situation. There are lots of stress. Try to de-stress yourself by doing your own exercises, yoga and meditation, and so on and so forth. Of course, if you need serious support from your local mental health team. You should access your local mental health team, your GP, general practitioners. Of course, if you need medication, you should go for that. So I'm a psychiatrist, so I always think about biopsychosocial model. So thinking about if there is any medical condition, if there is any social condition, any psychological condition or psychiatric condition, you should focus on all of that. You must seek help early, and that will be beneficial for you and your children as well. So with that, I think I will stop there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashish. A big part of what Breathe Happy does is use science and data to bust myths. And you did that so well, starting from the fact that everybody believes that children are not affected. But while the death rate may be low, the invisible damage that the COVID is doing to their mental and emotional health is what you just captured beautifully with data, and also with what future holds for them, whether it's affected by loss of income of parents, parents' own mental health, loss of their own emotional support from their peers, from missing out the classroom interaction, social interaction. That was beautifully captured. What I would summarize is how you advised us that in future, what we can do to take care of this. So tell me if I'm capturing it right. One is that you recommend parents support through books, through talking to them and spending quality time at home. And I know how difficult that is, being one myself, but quality is the key here. Listen to them maybe, learn about their day just as a friend would. And third, know their interest and facilitate that online. So whether it's classrooms or music or dance or yoga or mindfulness or meditation. My daughter started having trouble sleeping, Dr. Ashish, and I started practicing with her meditative stories. So holiday home, snowtop mountain, being in the forest, a cottage or sun beach. So she's got these meditative stories, and now the situation is that she tells me, Mommy, can we do the beach one today, please? And that's her quality time with me, as well as something that helps her get grounded before she sleeps. So please use whatever you can. And at the end of this seminar, we will also be sharing a discount code for you to access any of our classes free of cost. Make use of that, please. So once again, thank you, Dr. Ashish, and we're getting lots of lovely questions in Q&A, which I'm trying to incorporate with our questions, and I'm going to ask you all of that. So stay tuned. And now I'm really excited to introduce Kim Palmer to all of you. Like I mentioned, and once again for the audience that has just joined in, she runs Clementine. After her successful career in the UK, she launched the startup which helps women with stress, sleep, and confidence. Her app Clementine is recommended by Guardian as one of the best apps to try for women. And Kim, you have this lived experience of a busy woman struggling so many balls at the same time, meal planning, house, and all of that, as if that was not enough pre-COVID world, has only been exacerbated. And I know that.
Yeah.
Please tell us.
So before I even get into me and talking about a little framework that we've developed to help, I just wanted to say to Dr. Ashish that when you were talking, I was literally nodding because I've got two small boys, and the eldest, who's 6, is going through a very, very difficult time mentally. So he's got lots of anxiety, and actually as a parent, I think the thing that we struggle with is we bring our own stress to the situation, if that makes sense. And it can feel quite lonely as a parent because you don't know what to do. So one thing that my husband and I do now is that every single night when we're having dinner together without the kids, we talk about the day that's just been, like, okay, what could we have done better? You know, and then so we go into and almost like park the day, because sometimes you take on board all the baggage of the things that happened the day before into the next day. And so even though he might wake up in a good mood, we might be still holding the baggage, if that makes sense. And it just helps us park it. So, and talking about it together so we don't feel so alone in our like stress with how we deal with him. has been really helpful. So I just thought I'd share that. So yeah, what I wanted to talk about this morning was, the question was really like, what can we do? The word do is an interesting word in itself. As busy women, people, doesn't matter. Busy is also an interesting word. So, you know, obviously this is a very difficult time that everybody's living in. There's no question about it. But what I think is super interesting as well, and we've seen this in our community, we have thousands of women. We've just also done a nationwide survey. And it seems to me that there's some parts of what we're living through that aren't bad. There are glimmers of hope that I think people are thinking, okay, but how do I take these forward, right? How am I going to take some of the little sparks in the day forward into this new world? And what I've also seen is that, I'm going to be completely frank here, is that before we went into this crazy situation, is that life was, you know, a lot of people were living quite dissatisfied lives. We saw a lot of rushing, you know, a lot of sleepwalking through the day, a lot of do, a lot of unconscious decision making going on. I'm sure a lot of people know this, you know, in your everyday, you're just almost, it's like Groundhog Day, right? And we really see this as well, as that that being busy, right? Being busy was almost like a badge of honor. I'm so busy. So that, you know, you meet your friends and you're talking to your family. I'm so busy. And let's be honest, being busy isn't great. So I think now is a time, in a way, and this might seem strange, to see this as a gift, to see this situation as a gift, and to think, how do we reset and think about the stuff that was going on before that we weren't happy about, and think about the things that maybe now we're not happy about, or the things that we are happy about, and reset our minds and think, how do we go forward? So we've created this little framework, and it's so simple. It's a bit like what Dr. Naomi was saying around, you know, a lot of the things that we can do to make a transformational impact on how we feel every day are free. So all you need to do with this is you just need a pen and you just need a paper, and you need to ask yourself 4 questions. So rather than go do, the thing is we have to stop, right? We have to give ourselves some time and some space. And I know everyone's thinking, I don't have time, I don't have space. But you can do this simple thing before you go to bed. Just take a piece of paper, sit in bed 5 minutes, do it for a week, and ask yourself these 4 pointed questions. And we can send these out afterwards. And I do this all the time, by the way. I reset my life like every 3 months. The first question is, okay, because we're quite negative in the way that we think. That's our sort of like way of, we're rote learned into just thinking and criticizing everything that we do, but there's a lot of good stuff that goes unnoticed. So the first question is, if you think back over the last 6 months, what actually went well? And think about it in the whole round of our lives. If you think about, there's this graph which is called the wheel of life. You know, we've got relationships, we've got the environment that we live in, we've got our love lives, or maybe lack of love life, whatever. We've got personal development. There's all these different aspects, and if you think about each one and break it down, almost you're doing like a little warrant of fitness, which is what went well. And I bet you'll be surprised when you actually give yourself the time to think about it, that a lot of things did go well. But then what you need to think about is the flip side of that. What didn't go so well? Because it's important to go through life and to acknowledge and to think about those things, and not just sweep them under the carpet, to actually just give yourself a minute to think, okay, it didn't go so well, so what am I going to do next time across all of those different things? So there's 2 questions. What's been going well? What's not been going well? And then, so that gives you a little bit of a helicopter view of maybe your family life, whatever it is. Then you go forward and you say, okay, well, how am I going to emerge through this? And then there's 2 more questions, which is, what am I going to say no to? This is a big one, because it's not about doing more. It's not about becoming more busy. In fact, it should be about how am I going to strip back some of the stuff that probably wasn't making me happy. You know, I think a lot of people realize now that because we're in a situation where we can't go out spending lots of money, you know, all these things, did they actually make you happy? I mean, I can only answer that question for myself, and the answer is no. So now's the time to think, what am I going to say no to? And for me, the really big one is around perfection. And I know this is true for a lot of people. So we have a thing in our house where good is good enough. And so part of that is about me delegating to my partner, my husband, to my kids. Because what would happen before is I'd think, oh, they can't do it because they're not going to do it quite as well as I could do it. But actually, who cares? Literally, who cares? As long as someone else is doing it, then that's fine by me, and good is good enough. So make a list of all the things you're not going to do. You know, I'm not going to do the ironing anymore. I don't do the ironing for my husband. My husband does all the cooking. You know, just list all the things. It's about getting stuff off your to-do list. And in a way, what you're doing is you're creating a not to-do list. The not to-do list with the to-do list is very important. And then once you get rid of stuff, right, the stuff that's not making you happy, that doesn't bring you any joy in your life, it allows you to have some space to bring in some good stuff. So the question is, what am I going to say yes to? Like what? And I think for busy people, what happens is when you're really busy, you lose all of the stuff that you really want to do. Like it could be walking, it could be, you know, taking your lunch break, dare I say it, closing your computer at 5 o'clock rather than just working all night. You know, what are you going to say yes to more of? The things that really light you up and give you energy bursts through the day. So a little one for me is when I'm really busy and stressed, I don't take baths anymore. So, but actually it's the thing that really centers me. So, and I know a lot of people probably think, oh, we don't have time to take a bath. But what I do is to fit it in is I do 5 minutes before my kids get in the bath. And that just gives me that 5 minutes just gives me enough headspace to like take on the rest of the evening, if that makes sense. So yeah, so if I go through this framework, it's about looking back and reflecting on what's gone well, what hasn't gone well. What are you going to say no to before you start putting more stuff on your list? And then what are you going to say yes to that really is going to make you feel good? And you mentioned, I can never get this phrase quite right, but you can't serve other people. You can't be generous in thought and doing and anything. You can't unless you are good. And I'm 41 now. I've spent my whole life getting to grips with that, and that it's okay for me to look after me before I look after anyone else in my house, before I look after my kids, before I look after my husband. And some people might think, oh, that's really selfish. But I genuinely know, because I didn't mention this, but I had a mental breakdown 6 years ago. I suffer with anxiety and panic attacks, so breathing is really important to me as well. But I have to feel centered, and I have to feel good in like everything for everybody else in my family to feel good. It just doesn't work the other way. My kids can feel it, the stress, you know. So yeah, hopefully that little framework is so easy to do. You just have to allow yourself the time to do it. And doing it in bed is a good time, because that's probably for a lot of people the only time that they have a chance to think. And that's usually when the to-do list starts.
Perfect. Loved your framework, Kim. Loved that. Loved your not to-do list. Loved the third tip, that take your me time. For Kim, it's a bath. For you, it could be a cup of tea. Yeah. For me, it's yoga. For somebody, it could be just mindfulness. Movement in body, stillness in mind. Yeah. It's as simple as that. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you so much, Kim. And we're going to come back with some questions, and which is why we need to quickly move. As much as I'm loving listening to all, I can't wait to get to our Q&A section. Before we do that, we've got some poll questions coming up just for the lovely audience that's waiting out there and sending us their questions. We would ask another 2 questions from our poll. So if you go down at the polling button, there will be 2 more questions coming up for you. The first question is, down at the polling button, you can hit them. The post-COVID changes you think are going to last till 6 months, 12 months, 18 or more? And the second question is, will social distancing strain our relationships? I can see the bars moving with lots of you people, an overwhelming percentage believing, over half of you believing that this new normal or post-COVID change is going to last beyond 18 months. So there are going to be some permanent changes. And just about 52% believe that the relationships might be strained. And then a good majority also believe might not. So let's find out more about that and what we can do to get the best from our next expert, Shagun, who's worked a lot with parents and education system. Shagun, what do you think as parents our role should be? Should we be, how best do we prepare our children for the road ahead instead of preparing the road ahead for the children?
Namaste to everybody. Greetings from India. Very, very happy to be on board. And thank you, Shruti, for having me in here. It's an old relationship with you, but I feel highly privileged that Breathe Happy has given me a chance to participate today. Thank you very much. I'd like to say thank you to Dr. Naomi, Dr. Ashish, and Miss Kim right now for your valuable inputs. And that was really amazing. Kim, what you have mentioned about saying no to something which you do not sink in with just before you go to bed. I think that's a point that the world needs to contemplate on. Right now, I'm a motivational speaker in India, and my only job is in COVID times to actually be a listening aid to people and motivate them. This is all I've been doing since 20th of March in India in lockdown. And believe me or not, more than being an educationist, the journey of being a motivational speaker and being the companion for anybody who's lonely and who has something to share, you come up with an open mind to believe that the world is a place of harmony. We all just need to open our arms. That's the only way. So I'll begin right here. You know, the pandemic has actually added a layer of anxiety to the parents. If I look at it, it's a very challenging time for parents. You know, raising a child in this unprecedented structure is not easy. It's very challenging. The topmost priority of parents is very, very clear. It's safety, it's health, and it's building immunity of your children. These are the 3 facts. You know, we're just going to talk facts and solutions in whatever I can propose to my lovely participants who are listening today. So many numbers right in here. You know, multitasking on the parents has taken a board. It's a testing trial time for parents in terms of managing their jobs, managing their work, managing their children, and managing the whole entire scenario of COVID at home. The external clans which existed, like the schools, the extracurriculars, the classes, they were the clans who were designing the life of our children. And that was the child's life away from our lives, so that the schedule was being taken care by them. Those clans do not exist anymore because social distancing is the key. We all know that. So the total development of the child's psyche is now in the hands of the parent. It is totally in the mother's hand or in the father's hand to structure, as Dr. Ashish said, the psyche level of the child. One most important thing, as in the post-COVID world, which are the stronger parents who survive? Well, the ones who actually healthify the bodies of their families now and live beyond the comfort zones of the 4 walls in your house. This is how I look at it. You know, as parents, we can get edgy. In my conversation with people, I felt that we have taken some wrong decisions due to havoc and panic of COVID at home and in the environment. But yet at the same time, I believe that in the post-COVID world, what are the kind of parents that will survive? Let me tell you, a spouse which will be a mutually trusted spouse giving support to, husband, wife supporting each other will be a combination which will build the support system in the post-COVID world. No matter what, even if you want to break down or you have an argument, somehow you'll have to keep up your emotions aside and build the positivity in your house to create that support system, because it is a challenging time and it's only in the hands of the parents right now. Frustration will have to be driven away like a formula of, mentally driving away the frustration and just smiling suddenly and saying it'll all pass away. No worry. If we react, if we have reactions as parents, then the child's psyche will break down. It's as simple as that. If you were to look at techniques, there are too many, but maybe a next workshop, Shruti, for that. But then these are the general basic points which I would like to touch on. The new world of COVID will actually have parents who will be expressions of, number one, affection for the child. You need to be verbally affectionate towards your child, even in terms of an educationist, as a teacher, or as a person who runs a school, or maybe as a writer. I only want to look at it that way. Affection, appreciation, and kindness. It's a time where values have risen. All the materialistic needs have gone down. So if human emotions connect with your child will be able to pass through these tough times, and the stronger COVID world will come forward, maybe in the next 6 months or 8 months or whatever be it so. The post-COVID world will actually witness parents. How I look at it is, people who've actually emotionally given up, especially here in India. I don't know how it's there in the UK. Some of us have totally given up at the pace of technology. Our children are constantly learning with skills. Everything is happening on technology, but we weren't so trained. Parents were not so trained to actually click and know the softwares, and so the new post-COVID world will witness parents who take a lot of online tutorials and sustain the technology advice, the helps, the skills, so that you can sustain in the coming months to actually connect with the entire world with peace. And that will only happen if you build your technology skills with learning. And one thing is for sure, the new post-COVID world parents will be highly methodical. And it is a mandate. How I like to look at it as an expert is that if we are not that great in experts in planning the routine of the house, the routine of the children, maybe now it's time to learn and just sit down and see how to plan the next few months and days. Planning will give us structure and framework. It will give you a sense of happiness when you go to bed. And once you're done with your sense of plan, you will be a more methodically treated, maybe a guide or an expert to your child, and the child will also feel satisfied by achieving a certain sense of framework during the day. The most important thing which a parent would witness in the new COVID world is definitely a life of minimalism. It's time. With our children, we all are doing it. But I still emphasize on a fact, anybody who comes in too much deep pain with me is like, declutter your physical space first. A life of minimalism is choosing the essentials and do not choose the optionals. When just giving an example, my dear panelists on board and my lovely participants, when lockdown was happening in India, now it's on the opening verge. We here were doing with, all of us in the world, across the world, were very scared to get out of our houses. And we were living in our basics of whatever basic human need is. And we were very happy. And, we actually had grandparents and everybody saying that these are the happier times because you all have never given us this time of sitting with us because we weren't focusing on external things. So a life of optionals has to be ruled out in the post-COVID world because it is here to stay. Choose the essentials. One thing very important which is going to happen here is that, right now the pollution levels are very low. And suddenly there'll be an attack of high pollution when the world starts opening up. And it has already started in a lot of countries. It's going to happen here in India too. There'll be a sudden attack of toxins. In the post-COVID world, I look at the whole scenario of parents living very, eco-friendly lives. Like why? Because suddenly, right now the air is healthier, so the lungs are breathing fine. But because of the high pollution levels in India, also the toxins will suddenly attack. So it might as well build a base from now on, removing the plastics from your house, maybe using eco-friendly products. So that parent has to be a very, very eco-friendly parent to survive the post-COVID world. Just two things: physical impact and mental impact. So what is the physical and mental impact which we will see in the post-COVID world? Physical impact is something we all, mothers and fathers who cook well, have tried our master chef culinary skills during the past 2-3 months. And I see a lot of faces smiling in here. Whoever's on board, I myself have done it, but then I got tuned to the fact when my son was putting on weight. I have one son. I realized that I should not try my creation on my family, which will lead to a pandemic after this pandemic called the obesity and weight gain. All the doctors are aware that the physical impact of this lockdown or COVID phase that we're going through is actually going to add up to something called obesity and weight gain, and the number of cases are on the rise. All the doctors are aware. Another physical impact which the post-COVID world will witness is the battle of real games versus the virtual games. In India and here, we have a lot of children at home, large number of children, joint families staying together. Some of us stay nuclear. So the idea of actually inculcating physical movement inside the house of age-old games like, there's some Indian games like Kho-Kho, Kabaddi, where you are supposed to run, hop, catch the stone. So the physical movement, because nobody's stepping out onto the fields to play cricket or football or, which kind of builds your body up. So the choice somehow has been to virtual games. Since the choice has been to virtual games, also because of the laziness of the parent. I myself am a parent. I myself have been lazy at times, maybe at work or occupied, telling my son, why don't you play chess online? You know what? At the end of the day, every little choice as a parent we make, as an educationist, it's a strong advice. It is an inch of an advice to your child, but it builds on. And I started realizing that when my son got onto spectacles just about 6 days back, it was a turnaround for us. I'm giving you my personal listing, but I also know by the market in the Indian scenario, I've been talking to a lot of ophthalmologists, that the eye scenario has totally risen. People are actually losing their vision, sitting in front of their screens. So the cognition abilities and the physical impact on the children of gaining weight, less movement, and affecting your mental abilities. We as parents have our anxiousness. All of us do. Ironing, a lot of housework, work, management, submission of files. It's a universal phenomenon right now. Every woman is going through it. You know what happens? Powerful are the women and the mothers who actually keep these anxiousness and worrisome points within themselves and do not express themselves in front of their children. And it's an art of how not to do it. It's an art. It could just take you for a second to get up from your space, go to another room, pent up your feelings, and come back to the child and just smile. You know why? Because energy of that anxiety is being transferred to the child. Energy cannot be created. It cannot be destroyed. We all know that. It can only be transferred. And what will happen in the post-COVID world when that happens? Number one, insomnia. Sleep disorders. Shruti, you already mentioned that there was a bit of a sleep disorder. So many parents I talked to, so many of them. Not only the children, even the parents are going through sleep disorders, insomnia, depression, loneliness. All these factors are bound to happen when by verbal constant we energize the space in our house with difficult words. So we have to curb those difficult words. We have to take a sip and consume them and come up with something positive, read something positive, see something positive, and just shoo it away. Solutions. Definitely a healthified body. You don't have to have gadgets. You don't have to have treadmills in your house. Just jumping, skipping, abs, do whatever. Sweat it out. Get your sweat out. Get your dopamine levels high. Get your endorphins on the move. Be happy. Sweat will reduce it. You make your children do this. Make them sweat for an hour. Make them jump. And you'll see the difference in the vibration of your house. Number 2, creation. You can also create. News, corona times, and actually keeping yourself updated with corona news and talking about corona all the time in the house will not help. This is here to stay. Your poll, Shruti, just mentioned that it's going to stay here for say about 12 months or more. I was really upset on seeing that. But anyway, people believe that. So it's time we all start creating, whether baking, whether putting up a painting, anything that we like. please cut down your social media time. It's a request to all the participants who are viewing today. It is not needed. If you create something, you'll be a happier you rather than just sticking to Corona news or to social media, which will actually...
Shagun, I must interrupt you here because we are also waiting to listen from Nayana as well as get into our live reading segment. But I loved your theme of decluttering our lives, of decluttering and going with minimalism. I loved what you said about things that we can do to improve on both physical and mental well-being aspects. And picking on that mental well-being aspect, we have with us Nayana, who's lived that philosophy with her life after 10 years of Google, dedicating her full life to communal well-being through yoga. And I'm dying to listen from you about your experience, about your therapeutic yoga experience. How do you do what you do?
Thank you. I'm really excited to be a part of this group and to have listened and learned from all of the other panelists here. And I'm so utterly delighted that Breathe Happy is taking a more holistic approach to yoga day instead of making us do 108 Surya Namaskars on our mats like every other yoga studio around the world. Because that is really what I'm trying to bring to the world as well as a yoga teacher, a more integrated and accessible way to approach all that yoga is and all that it can be in your life. But I have to say, when I heard Shiti introduce me as an ex-Googler, I went, oh, come on, I'm a yoga teacher now. Can I get rid of that identity? But I very proudly wear the ex-Google badge. And I often tell people that I really grew up in Google. And I'm very proud to have worked there. And I owe a lot to the company and to my colleagues at Google. So before dialing in today, this is a small Google story. And I have many such stories sprinkled in through my talk. But before dialing in today, I was super nervous because I saw all of these people, very gorgeous, accomplished people on the panel. And I was like, oh my God, I've done nothing with my life. And this took me back to a time where at Google, I gave a speech about a product that I had no idea about. In the company, we have this thing called TGIF, thank God it's Friday, wherein every Friday, the leaders of the company get up on a stage and present new products and speak to all employees about what's going on around the world, but also what's going on in the company. And we had versions of that in our Singapore office, which is where I worked with Google. And my boss was to present a product that my team had worked on for the Philippines, I think. And he was suddenly called away for an emergency meeting. And my team decided that I was the perfect replacement for my boss. And now I was in culture and HR, and this was an engineering team building products. So I had absolutely no idea what this product was about. So I took myself to a room and got into a downward facing dog, did a little bit of breathing there, sat down, did a little bit of alternate nostril breathing, came out of the room, and I was like, okay, now I'm ready to go. And I presented that product, even though I had absolutely no clue what it was about, to like 1,000 people. So I'm mostly going to be taking you through stories of my life, which are very personal, but it's also stories about how yoga helped me, but also how yoga did not help me. We've heard a lot about how yoga can be helpful, but as more and more people are coming to this practice and are in tuning to a more grounded practice, there's also the danger of believing that yoga is the solution to everything in your life. And also that all kinds of yoga is good for all kinds of people. As a qualified yoga therapist, I will let you know that there are certain things that can worsen your condition if that's not suited for you. For example, I work with someone who has high blood pressure, and I would never have them do Kapalabhati, which is a very intense, fast-paced breathing technique. Neither would I have them stay in a downward-facing dog for more than 3 breaths. Neither would I ever get them up into a headstand. So there are certain things about even a physical asana yoga practice that can be a bit dangerous for you. Now, so even though you must be an amazing yogi, you are still not immune to all that's happening around in the world. So you need to take a step back from your own practice and ask yourself the question, how is your practice helping you stay grounded and stay sane in these times? As opposed to a lot of people coming to India to learn this art of yoga, I had to go out of India to Singapore to step onto my first yoga mat. And this was about, I think, 12 years ago. And I've frankly practiced all styles of yoga, and I've loved them all, from hot yoga to a really strong physical Ashtanga Vinyasa practice, and all other forms of yoga that you might find on any yoga studio's booking page today. But after 8 years of that practice, and sometimes 2 classes a day, no break in the week, and a yoga teacher's training certificate under my wing, I thought I was capable of handling any crisis that would hit me. Because I mean, look at me, I could put my head behind my leg behind my head, and I could stand on my elbows. What could life throw at me that these skills wouldn't solve, right? Surprise, surprise, when crisis hit, I was totally unprepared for it. So when I sat down and asked myself and introspected why the tools and the resources that yoga offers had been of no help to me, I realized that I was actually not really taking any lessons from my yoga mat outside to my life. For example, there's a pose in yoga called tree pose, Vrikshasana in Sanskrit. So why do we stand in tree pose in a yoga class? The right answer is not because it looks good on Instagram, but because it's supposed to teach us to stay rooted like a tree, irrespective of what the weather is around you, and especially to stay strong when the going gets tough. I also realized that the other mistake I was making with my yoga practice was that all of these other qualities that I was surrounding myself with in my work life, I was bringing that on to my yoga mat. So whether that was doing a lot, and I know Kim said do. So I was doing a lot outside of my yoga mat, but I was also doing too much on my yoga mat. I was directing my life too much. I was constantly thinking of how to improve my headstand or my shoulder stand, constantly achieving, constantly trying to control a process, instead of really focusing on receptivity or tolerance or patience or the process of becoming, instead of chasing a goal. And yoga therefore became for me a chance to inflate a place to inflate my ego instead of trying to disassociate it from who I really was. Fortunately, post this period, I found myself back home in India, and I went to my guru in an ashram very close to Bombay. And when he saw my practice on the first day that I was in the ashram, he told me, the next time you walk into the studio, you keep your ego outside the door. For those of you who've gone to school in India or have an Indian yoga teacher, they don't kid around. If it hurts you, they will say it more, just so to make a point. And he told me, if you don't do that, I'm going to stop giving you lunch. So that's how I learned how to detach my ego from my practice, because I wanted lunch. So now my personal style is a lot more grounded. And even as a teacher, it has evolved into a more classical stillness, long holds, teaching styles. I focus on breath a lot more. But what's also important is I stop telling people as much as what they should be feeling, and I try and guide people into what they are actually feeling in their bodies, because everyone's experience is different. I meditate a lot more, and I try and guide my students into meditative and pranayama breathwork techniques as well. And most of my students happen to be beginners, and I love teaching beginners because you can really set them up for success, and you can try and, like I said, really push them into exploring deeper aspects of yoga beyond just their asana or a physical practice. I teach a lot of prenatal and postnatal classes. I love working with mothers-to-be and mothers who just delivered. But a lot of my work is also yoga therapy, where I'm working with people who are on a healing journey from all of these lifestyle diseases that surround us today. And again, like I mentioned, as a yoga therapist, I've learned a lot just observing how people are using yoga, not to perfect their poses and put them up on Instagram, but to actually heal themselves. So it's put me back in touch with what yoga should be, and it should actually be healing and therapeutic, and not associated with your ego at all. Now, as we see more and more people come to yoga studios, come to yoga classes online, as much as it thrills me as a yoga teacher, because I have the opportunity to connect and practice with even some of my older teachers from Singapore or from the ashram. But as a yoga therapist, I find it very alarming, because I'd rather people not start their yoga journey by watching recorded videos on YouTube. Because like I said, everyone's needs are different, and you really need to connect with a teacher to tell them what your goals and your needs are, not just on the mat, but also off the mat. And it's a lot more helpful to have a teacher look at you live, correct you, know when is a good day for you, when's not a good day for you, and change the practice accordingly. Like I was teaching a class with Breathe Happy, and I had planned a very intense sequence, but I noticed that people needed something more calming. So to change the practice midway, because you're getting that sense of energy, even though virtually, from your students is really important. So if there's one thought I'd leave you with, it's definitely practice yoga, go back to your practice or restart a practice. But please, please, please do so wisely. Choose your teacher and choose your style of learning, your style of yoga very, very carefully. Because if you've stepped onto the mat for healing, we don't want you to step out of it with an injury.
Very, very wise and very right. I think, first of all, thank you for sharing your experience. And it sort of takes me back to what Dr. Ashish said as well, which is that yoga is not a cure-all. It's not going to solve all your problems, firstly. So do access your local mental health support if you are in serious need, in authentic need. But try yoga with a teacher who can help you guide through your journey. Just the way you let your cars be guided by GPS. Don't let your body and minds be just driven by internet. If you take one thing, take that away from us today. We're talking the talk and we're walking the walk, because we are happy to share a discount code, a full discount code for a free class of your choice of any class from our menu, and we'll share that towards the end of the webinar. But thank you so much all for sharing this wealth of information. You guys talked different themes that I loved capturing. We've been getting lots of questions that I'm aching to ask. But before that, I must tell everybody who's listening out there, and although we can't see their faces, we've got the numbers up there. And even after an hour and 20 minutes later, not even 5 people have left out of hundreds who have joined us. And I've never, ever attended a webinar like that. So thanks to all of you experts, because people are obviously finding wealth of information and insights that you guys are speaking. It's touching their hearts. We've got questions from things like, Kim, are you from New Zealand? To Dr. Ashish, is yoga even a science? To Shagun, very rightly said, as it should be. To Dr. Naomi, what are meditative stories? And thank you for breathing. And as a clinical psychologist, what are the things that I can do in my practice? Bravo, wonderful, amazing. I get anxious quite often. How do I solve that? How to concentrate during meditation? Where can I find my right teacher? And so on and so forth. So, and I'm going to try and squeeze in as many questions, combining our pre-submitted with the live ones. Dr. Ashish, the first question is for you, inspired by what just Nayana spoke about. Is yoga even a science? And what's the science behind it? Dr. Ashish, I think you're on mute. I'm going to unmute you and ask again. Is yoga even a science, and what's the science behind it?
Yeah, so it's very interesting and important question. And there are 2 ways to answer this question. In science, we always look for evidence. So everyone might say that eating grapes are good for health. So, and someone might say, no, eating oranges or smoking is good for health. So we look for evidence for that, and we look for historical evidence, we do research trials, and so on and so forth. So during my talk, I had quoted a research paper from Harvard in US, and they had done a research on meditation and yoga, especially in children, and they found that it improved their attention, concentration, flexibility, and so on and so forth, which is usually associated with the yoga and mindfulness. So there is some evidence there, it helps. Now, question would be then how it helps. During the talk from Naomi, and she went very beautifully to describe there is a amygdala in your brain, which is a small organ deep inside your brain, and so there are different centers in your brain which helps, and so there are receptive side of your brain, and there is interactive side of your brain, and there is active side of your brain, in simple layman's term, without going into too much of anatomical description of the brain. So fundamentally what happens is that when we are alive or we are awake or we are conscious, which is yogic word to use, consciousness, um, you are present in your environment, you are listening, you are smelling, you are tasting, you are feeling, and so on and so forth. So, and then you process in your brain and then you react to that. So if you are in beautiful environment most of the time, there is no stress, there is relaxation, you feel better. And if that becomes your way of life over a period of time, that's how you will reflect upon everything in a calm manner compared to someone who is very agitated, someone is very impulsive, someone who is very angry, and so on and so forth. And so definitely there is science behind that, that if you practice calmness, if you practice, deep breathing exercises, which makes you calm because you have high supply of oxygen, which increases, if you say, for example, you eat healthy food, which increases the level of serotonin, a chemical in your brain. And so overall, it helps you to respond better to your surroundings. It helps you to process your stress level better. You would see in the same company, and Nayana was mentioning Google, which is obviously very high profile, very stressful environment. You must perform, you must show some results, and similar to any corporate world, actually. So I'm sure Nayana would have dealt with her pressure different too if she was practicing yoga. She would have dealt with her stress level much better than many of her colleagues who would have felt let's go and smoke 10 cigarettes in the office, or go for alcohol in the evening, and so on and so forth, compared to who is practicing yoga and practicing mindfulness and has healthy lifestyle. So definitely there is 2,000 years of evidence from India and eastern part of Asia, um, that yoga has helped people over the centuries, over the 2 millennium, to improve their life, reduce their stress, and have a healthy, happy life. And it reflects upon your family members, your surroundings, the way you deal with stress at work, and it improves your self-worth as well and self-confidence, I would say. So there are lots of research evidence as well as evidence across the ages.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I can see your sense of humor trickling in all those questions, which you've been taking the pains to answer live. And thank you to Kim as well. And she's a proud Kiwi, for those who didn't read her answer, by the way. Thank you all for answering those questions live as we went through. Dr. Naomi, there's another question for you, because you, I think, mentioned about breathing and fear. And there's a lot of fear and panic around the times of Corona. So do you have some handy tips, like top 3 recommendations that we can do to deal with fear and panic in these times? I'm going to unmute you before that. Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, before the talk, I was thinking about what are the 3 things that I would recommend, and they've actually been covered by all speakers. So for me, I would say definitely breathing. But then I think the second thing is about raising our interoceptive awareness, which yoga really does. So interoception is our capacity to sense what's going on inside our bodies. So it's our interoception that tells us when we're hungry, when we're thirsty, when we're tired, but also tells us when we're feeling emotions like happy, sad, frightened. And there's a lot of variability in our ability to detect what's going on inside us. So if you're raised in an environment where your needs weren't responded to, you might have had to override them. Or if you're working in a corporate setting where actually you're expected to work very long hours, you have to override your tiredness. But good interoceptive awareness is important for self-care, as it enables us to recognise what feelings we have and then address them. So if we recognise we're lonely, we can seek out support, or recognise that we're frightened, find ways to make ourselves safe. When we're not aware, we're much more likely to act impulsively, reach for the biscuits, reach for alcohol, become irritable. We can really improve our interoception by tuning into our bodies, and I would say yoga and mindfulness really help with that. So when we know what we feel, it's much easier to take the action that can help that. So if we feel lonely, we can phone a friend rather than eat. And I think interoception is a skill that you can develop over time, so you can really by focusing in on your body, which for me, for many years, I tried yoga lots of times. And actually, I think for me, I didn't get it. I just thought yoga was stretching, and I really couldn't understand what was the big faff around. And then it was when I trained as a sensory motor psychotherapist where I had to really look inwards and notice what happened in response to very small changes in interactions, that I was like, that's the point of yoga. And actually doing yoga even very, very slowly and just noticing those kind of like minor shifts. So I would really encourage people to start trying to enhance their interoception, and yoga and mindfulness are a fantastic way to do that. And then I think also Kim spoke about cognitive reframing. In therapy, we sometimes call that making lemonade out of lemons. So you might not choose the fruit that you have in front of you, but actually you're going to do your best to make that into something good. So it's very easy to get caught up in feeling negative. And for me, a big stressor for me has been homeschooling and how to manage homeschooling alongside working and all the other demands. And when I'm stressed and anxious, I get rigid. I start nagging my son and, you know, wanting him to crack on with it. And I think now we actually, and also Shagun touched on this, we have the opportunity to make the future what we want it to be. So many of the things we do, like education, is something that we've just been kind of following a habit and making minor tweaks to education, but we actually now have the chance to do things differently. So for my son, I could kind of like crack through the list of activities that the school have asked us to do. And what my son would take from the pandemic is, that was that 6-month period where you were nagging me all the time. That's not what I want for my son. I want him to look back and I think, actually, that's the 6 months where I got to skip school and I got to spend loads more time hanging out with my mum and having a really fun time with my parents. And actually, when my son feels safe, when we all feel safe, we're able to be much more curious, much more playful and much more creative. So actually having that sense of safety really enables us to do things differently. And my son will still learn. He's not a stupid boy, and he will get what he needs from school. But I think it'd be really nice if we could think as a society how we might want to do things differently.
Perfect.
And can I just perhaps add in also about nature and how important that is? Because again, that's very scientifically based. We know that nature calms us when we look at it, and also that handling soil has antidepressants in it. So actually both those things can be really good for us.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Perfect. Thank you so much. And Kim, you've been spot on answering questions as we went on along with Dr. Ashish. So thank you for being such troopers with us. We are now going into live meditation, movement and breathing techniques with Nayana live for our audience. But just before we do that, I'm going to pull up the code that we wanted to share with all of you to take a class on any class of your choice. You can first go to letsbreathehappy.com. There are lots of classes available, Nayana's as well, although she mostly does one-on-one individual therapeutic classes. You can use the coupon code HEALTH2020 when you book your class at the checkout stage, and that will enable you to try that for completely free. Once again, you can go on letsbreathehappy.com and use the coupon code HEALTH2020 when you check it out. You don't have to do it necessarily right now. We will make that code live for a week. So please feel free to check it out in your own time. The idea is for you to get a taste of what we've been talking about just now, so that it just keeps it real. We also have our social media handles where we will be posting our program. And the next slide, I think, has the social media handles. Lots of webinars coming up, because I know there are lots of questions that still went unanswered. So please don't be disheartened. We will be doing separate workshops as well, such as with Dr. Naomi on sensory motor therapy, with education workshops and with tools and techniques specifically available that you can do with your children. Somebody asked meditative stories. We will do one there. So we'll keep that program updated on our social handles. So do follow us, to be updated there. And now I would once again, from the bottom of my heart, thank all of the panelists who've taken out time on Saturday. I would like to thank all the audience that has come through, and don't just go yet because we're starting the live meditation, movement and breathing after this. But thank you for taking your time, Dr. Ashish, Dr. Naomi, Shagun, Kim. The insights you shared were immensely powerful for me, and rest assured, all of us are going to benefit from them, as you've seen the interaction already. So without further ado, we will take the spotlight on Nayana for some breathing, followed by stretching, which we call as movement in body, and stillness in mind. I welcome you all to join Nayana with her yoga and meditation live from Breathe Happy.
Thanks, everyone. I'm just going to switch that up. We might do a little bit of stretching before we go into breathing, because we've been all sitting for so long. So irrespective of how you're placed, whether you're seated on a chair or you're seated down on the floor, on a carpet, or even if you're standing, you can do these exercises that I'll do along with you. So the first one, if you're seated on a chair, palms on the thighs, please, palms facing down. If you're seated cross-legged on the floor, then palms on the knees. And if you're standing, then hands can just be by your sides. Okay, and from there, let's just begin to bring the chin in towards the chest and do these movements very, very gently. And slowly, if you're not suffering from cervical spondylosis, lift the head up and back, look back. Bring the head back to center. Very gently, left ear goes towards the left shoulder. Pull the right shoulder down here. And the right ear to the right shoulder. Okay, let's do that 2 more times at the pace of your own breath, chin to chest. Head back and up if that feels okay for you today. Left ear, left shoulder. And other side. One last round at your own pace. And once you're back to center, let's begin a couple of neck rotations. Go even more slowly here, chin to chest. Bring the chin towards the left shoulder. Take the head back. Chin to the right shoulder. Bring the chin back to center. Let's reverse the direction, going back the way we came in. Do that 2 more times. And this is a good place to notice if there's any particular point in the neck which is a little bit more tensed or is hurting maybe even. And afterwards, maybe showing a little bit more love and stretch to that specific area. Okay, once you're done, let's interlace the fingers. Take the hands behind the head, cupping the very base of the head. And as you inhale, you'll open the elbows out, look up if that feels okay. Push the chest forward. And as you exhale, round the spine, bring the chin in towards the chest, elbows move in closer. Inhale to arch, look up, really pull the chest out through the gateways of the shoulder. Exhale to round, chin to chest, elbows in. 3 more. At the pace of your own inhales and exhales. Do one last. And come back to center. Okay, now take your hands in front of you. Bring the left arm under the right arm, so interlace the arms. Bring the palms to touch and try and raise the elbows in line with the shoulders. And as you do this, round the space in the upper back, almost like you're peeling the shoulder blades away from each other. Resist the temptation to drop your head back here, so keep the chin neutral. 2 more breaths, just holding this stretch. A lot of us are sitting hunched up on our desks in front of our laptops or even our mobile phones. So this is actually a really good stretch for you to do. in between your workday as you take a break. Okay, with the next inhale, let's release. It's important to repeat that on the other side. Right arm under the left arm now. Bring the elbows in line with the shoulder. And really push the chest back, rounding the upper and the middle back there. Two more breaths. And release. Okay, now take the hands in what I like to call cactus, which is the shoulders and the elbows in line and the elbows and wrists in line. So both arms go like that. Now from where you're seated, twisting just the torso and leaving the hip as is, twist towards the left. Go as far as you can go. Come back to center. Remember, hips don't move, so your sitting bones don't move. Twist to the left now. And to center. That to the side once more. The palms down. Let's go on to some breathing. So we'll be doing two kinds of breathing techniques today. And both of these are suitable for anyone across ages, irrespective of what your current situation, health situation is. First one is alternate nostril breathing, which is inhaling through one nostril, closing that nostril off and exhaling through the other, and then repeating that sequence. The second one is a humming bee breath, which is also an inhale and exhale out through the nostrils, but we'll be making a humming bee sound at the exhale. Okay, so that one looks like, so the humming bee breath looks like this, where I'll close my eyes with all of my 4 fingers and my ears with the thumb. I'll inhale through the nostril, exhale through the nostril as well, but with a sound. Okay, and don't go further than what your exhale allows. Keep the breaths very natural. Let's start with Anulom Vilom, or alternate nostril breathing. I will go into humming bee breath after that, and then I'll guide you into a meditation. So try and keep your eyes closed throughout the process. Okay, depending on what your dominant hand is, left or right, bring the thumb to close the right nostril if you're using your right hand. Keep the left nostril open, close the eyes. The other hand can rest on your thigh or on the knee. Inhale through the left nostril for 1, 2, 3, 4. Close left, out, right, 4, 3, 2, 1. In right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Move right, out, left, 4, 3, 2, 1. In left, 1, 2, 3, 4. Close left, out, right, 4, 3, 2, 1. In right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out, left, 4, 3, 2, 1. In left, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out, right, 4, 3, 2, 1. In right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out, left, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In left, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out, right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out, left, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In left, 1, 2, 3, 4. out, right, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out, left, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 2, 1. In left, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out, right, 6, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out, left, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In left, 1, 2, 4. Out, right, 4, 3, 2, 1. In right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out, left, 4, 3, 2, 1. In left, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out, right, 4, 3, 2, 1. In right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Out, left, 4, 3, 2, 1. Keep both hands down, keep the eyes closed. Breathing in and out, open nostrils now. Bring your hands, the four fingers of each hand to close either eye, the thumbs to close the ears. At the pace of your own breathing, inhale through the nostril, exhale. Keep going at your own pace.
सर मुकेश जी का पेमेंट ब्लॉक हो गया है। आपके पेपर चेक कर।
Take 3 more breaths like that. Good job. Once you're done, bring the hands up, Eyes closed. As we enter a period of formal meditation practice together, carved out this time to be with and by yourself, establishing yourself as best as you can, a posture that embodies dignity, whether you're sitting in a chair or on the floor, or lying down, and for that matter, even standing. Establishing also gentle, firm intention to be awake as possible, and to be as in touch as possible with the present moment, just as it is, however it is for you. Using my words merely as pointers to your own interiority and your own inner experience from moment to moment, so that what is important is your experience, and you can tune out or drop beneath what I'm saying. What is important is to focus on your own experience, both as I am speaking and in the stretches of silence. So at this point, bringing to mind or into your heart what the deep motivation or yearning is for taking this time for yourself in the first place. And as you do, gradually allowing your attention to alight gently on the breath, moving in and out of the body, featuring as a primary focus some region in our body where the breath sensation is most vivid for you right now. That might be in the belly, where you might be experiencing the gentle ballooning out of the abdomen on the in-breath and the gentle receding of it on the out-breath. Or maybe at the nostrils, which are actually feeling the passage of the air as it comes in and out. Or a larger sense of the entirety of each breath moving from the nostrils down to the belly or any other place in the body that the breath is most vivid for you. Without forcing or striving or efforting, as best as you can, just gently riding on the waves of your own breathing from moment to moment, as a leaf might ride on the waves on the surface of a pond, without pulling the breath in or pushing the breath out, without any forcing really whatsoever. Just allowing the breath to be as it is, moment by moment by moment, and breath by breath by breath. allowing your intention to include the full embracing of each and every breath. Gently, lightly, with mindfulness, so that the breath is known, felt, experienced in the moment of its arising. The full unfolding of the in-breath and the falling away of the out-breath, and the next arising, all met, embraced, and held in awareness as best as you can, moment by moment by moment. Now, sooner or later, it's inevitable that we will discover that the mind has a life of its own. A very active, busy, inquisitive, and sometimes obsessive life. And so, even with the strongest of intention to keep our attention on the breath and sustain it breath by breath, it's hard not to notice that after a while, that intention might be sidetracked, hijacked, diverted, and we become absorbed in some other activity of the mind. Various endless scenarios and stories that play themselves out in the mind. Maybe it's anticipating and worrying about future events of planning, or fantasizing about some future, or maybe it's recollecting past events and getting carried away by memories and feelings about the past. Maybe it's arguing with ourselves about this or that, or with somebody else for that matter, and objecting to this or that. It could virtually be anything. And in this process, the breath that we were paying attention to, this very breath can rapidly disappear from our awareness, even though, of course, it is still moving in and out of the body. And even though we had made the commitment to just be with an awareness of that breathing, but in any moment that you discover that the mind is no longer with or on the breath, don't turn that into a problem or in any way condemn yourself for this lapse in attention. Simply and open-heartedly, affectionately noting what's on your mind at this moment. If the breath is no longer center stage in this field of awareness, what is? And in the noting, seeing, feeling, sensing of what's on your mind, let the breath be a part of it. Right in this moment, because it's also here right now. Just allow wherever the mind has moved to to be however it is, and reestablish the primacy of the attention once again at the belly or at the nostrils, on the flexing of the breath sensations in the body, in this very moment of now. So that when you are recognizing that the mind has drifted or wandered, that recognizing function, that is already awareness, awareness in itself. Simply pick up on how your breath is at this moment, aiming your attention on the breath, and then as best as you can, sustaining the attention on the breath by riding on the waves of the breath sensation. And when you become aware that the mind has drifted again and is no longer on the breath, gently and kindly, compassionately, just noting what the mind is up to now. In this awareness and practicing with a quality of open and affectionate attending to the unfolding of your life as it unfolds right here, breath by breath, moment by moment. This is a radical act of love, to just meet the breath, to embrace the breath and the fluctuations of your own mind in this way. So sitting or lying or standing as if your life depended on it, breathing and knowing the breath moving as if your life depended on it, which of course it does. Moment by moment, by moment, by moment. Resting here, fully awake, with no agenda other than to be awake, to be knowing of this breathing. In the few remaining moments of the sitting, if your posture has collapsed, or if your attention has again in some way collapsed, seeing again how you can, with the lightest of touches, embrace the breath back, resting in the awareness of breathing. In this time, outside of time altogether. Just this moment, just this breath, just this drinking in of the air, this flowing of the air through the body, this giving and receiving of the air, this unfolding of life by moment, by moment, by moment, in awareness. Very, very gently bring the awareness back to your seated posture or your standing posture. Begin to imagine the walls, the ceiling, floor of the room that you're in, any doors and windows. Slowly bringing yourself back into this external world. Very gently bring your palms together in prayer in front of the chest. Bowing down, thanking yourselves for taking this time out and practicing. Thanking all of the fellow practitioners who've shared their energies with you, even though virtually on this call. And always thanking your mind and body for everything it does for you without any judgments. Let's begin to rub the palms against each other, generating a little bit of heat in between the hands. Take the hands to the eyes. Give a very light, gentle massage. And slowly blink the eyes open into your hands and remove the palms away from the face. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nayana. It was beautiful as always. And I know your classes are much more energetic and yin yoga, but today's format allowed for this restful and pause-laden section, which was a beauty for me to attend as well. I'm going to invite any final comments from our panelists before we get into the code and the social media handles once again. Dr. Naomi, I'm going to start with you. Did you enjoy the session from a medical point of view?
I've really enjoyed all of it. I've enjoyed everybody's contributions, and just especially want to say to Nayana, thank you. That was such a lovely way to end a participation in something like this. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Kim, I see you there with your little one. It's the perfect note to end the meeting as well, on well-roundedness of our family's participation.
Yeah, sorry, he was getting a little bit impatient, but he enjoyed the end of it, Nana, so thank you. This is his first time, so he's too... He sat still for the whole time, so I was really impressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ashish had to leave for an emergency appointment, and he sends his best regards. He really enjoyed answering all your questions, and we will be holding further workshops as well with him as well with the other panelists. Shagun, any final comments? Did you enjoy the session?
Thank you, Breathe Happy. It was wonderful, very enriching, in a lot of information and good learning. And I think everybody thoroughly enjoyed it, and we should keep this endeavor going to contribute in these tough times so that people can actually uplift their lives. Thank you very much. Breathe Happy.
Thank you. And of course, thank you, Nayana, for sharing your passion and your zeal with us. And thank you for the lovely session. I'm again going to pull up the code for those of you who are with us. First of all, thank you for being with us, for your support, encouragement, participation. We will also upload the recording for the portions that you may have missed, or if you want to share with your friends and family. So you can see the recording on our website, which is letsbreathehappy.com. You can take a picture of the screenshot with your mobile phones should you want to use the code later. Please feel free to share with your friends and family as well. We welcome as many people to try out at least one of our classes with that. You can also follow the calendar of further workshops specifically as well with each of these attendees and further attendees at our social handles. So feel free to join us there. And I look forward to seeing all of you in future events. Thank you from Breathe Happy, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.